I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast bonus episode interview with Chandler and Jade. Your life does not have to revolve around your husband's pornography addiction. You are not defined by his choices or by what he sees on a screen. You are not just the porn addict's wife. You are so much more. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to go from handling it to healed. Because I've been where you are, and you don't have to stay there. My name is Jolene Wynn. I'm a member of the LDS Faith, a certified life coach, and a wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. All right, ladies, I have two very important things that I need you guys to keep in mind. Are you ready? Number one, Rob and I are starting our very first men's group on April 14th. We are so excited about this. We are going to take 8 men through, and it will be 4 months long. And we're so excited. This is not an accountability group. This is a deep dive program. We are creating an online course and combining that with coaching to help men who want to overcome their pornography addiction once and for all. This is the hard work. This is going deep and figuring out the root of the problem, digging it up, and removing it once and for all. This is the exact same process that Rob used. This is the exact same process that I use with my clients to do the deep work and finally conquer this thing. So if the gentleman in your life is ready to finally put this behind him, I want to encourage you to sign up ASAP. Okay, there are only 8 spots. One of them is already taken, and this is going to fill up. Simply head to my website, jolenewynn.com, and sign up for a free consultation call. Your husband will get on a call with either Rob or myself, and that is how we're going to go ahead and sign you up. So if your husband is ready to do the deep work and overcome this thing, let's go. I'm so excited about this. The other thing that I want you guys to keep in mind is that if you have been thinking about joining my coaching program, there has never been a better time. The introductory price that has been offered since January for my lifetime group is going up on April 1st. So if you want to get in, now is the very best time before prices go up. I've been so excited about the women who have already joined this year, and I cannot wait to see who else comes along. So if you are ready to finally put this behind you and do the deep work yourself, let's go. Come join me. Head to my website, jolenewynn.com. You can sign up right away, or you can sign up for a free consultation call with me. You and I will get on the phone. We'll chat all about it, and we'll see if it's the right fit for you. If you guys are ready to put this behind you, I cannot wait to teach you everything, all of the how of finally letting this go and moving forward. So head to my website, jolenewynn.com, and I'll see you soon. Hello, my ladies. How are you guys doing? I am so excited to bring you a bonus episode. This is an interview that I got to do, a conversation I got to have with an amazing young couple, and I'm so excited to bring it to you. I want to give you guys a little story as to how I came in contact with them. So on social media and the powers that be, I was contacted by 2 young gentlemen who have created an app. And you guys have probably heard me talk about this on my Instagram stories. If you haven't, go follow me there at Jolene Wynn Coaching. And I've started talking about this app, and it's called Relay. As you guys know, I am not a fan of the wives being the accountability partner for your spouse. Ladies, I don't think it's a good idea most of the time because as the wife, you are usually not in an emotionally resilient enough spot to be the accountability partner, right? You have so much of your own emotional stuff going on. It's very hard to then be the emotional support person for your spouse, even though you want to be supportive, even though you want to be helpful. Most of you guys are not in the place to take that on. And it's also not something we completely understand. Unless you've struggled with a porn addiction yourself, it's not something you completely get. And that's another reason why I don't recommend the wife being the accountability partner for the husband regarding porn addiction. So when I heard about this app, I was super excited about it because it's an app that is all about giving men the accountability partner team that they need in order to move forward. Ladies, some of the things that are crucial in moving forward is having support, right? When you feel like you're alone, it can feel very overwhelming, very overwhelming, very crushing. It can be very difficult to move forward because you don't know how to do it and you feel like you don't have the energy to do it. That's one of the beautiful things about a support system is it kind of gifts you the energy when you feel like you don't have any. So that is why I love this app, because this is giving the porn addict the support system that they need, the team that they need. And ladies, you have your team. If you come join my coaching program, we have the team for you. But this is the team for your husband. Okay, so I love this app. So as I got introduced to this app by these two young gentlemen, I was so excited about Chandler's story because he also struggled with a pornography addiction. And I asked him if he and his wife wouldn't mind coming and sharing their story on the podcast. You guys know I love sharing your stories, other people's stories on the podcast, because it gives you just another glimpse of what is possible, right? And I think so many of you guys listen and you hear me and you think, well, she's a unicorn, right? And even if you don't think that phrase in particular, because I don't think I've ever thought that phrase in real life, but it's something along the lines of, that's great for her, but it's not possible for me. Or, wow, I wish, right? And so I want to share with you guys as many stories as possible to give you hope that you can actually take steps to move forward and put this behind you and even work through it together, as Chandler and Jade talk about. So all that being said, I'm super excited to bring you this interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. We do talk about more about the app at the end of the interview. So I hope you guys listen in. And I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Chandler and Jade. Okay, I am so excited to get going. So let's just go. Chandler and Jade, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I am so glad that you're here. And Chandler, I would love it if you'd kind of lead us off with a little bit of your story pre-Jade, because I know that there was a little bit of your story before Jade came into the picture. So if you wouldn't mind starting us off and giving us kind of a segue into where y'all are, or where before she came on.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I just right now, to introduce myself, I'm 24 years old and I'm currently finishing up college at BYU in Utah. And so my story, to rewind, starts when I was a teenager, just my early years in high school. As you know, my body was changing. I stumbled upon masturbation and eventually pornography. Like many guys, that's, it starts from a young age. And I didn't really know, I guess, what I was doing was wrong, or that I didn't want to be doing it until it was a little too late. And by that, I mean, like, I felt trapped and it started to become really hard to stop those habits. I think I was a sophomore in high school once I was like actively trying to overcome these behaviors.
Okay, pause. I do this a lot. I jump in. So I should have told you that before.
No, I love it.
How old were you when you started? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was about 13. So it was probably a year and a half or 2 years that I was probably trying to start, or I guess realizing that I didn't want to be going down this path, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so normal because so many, I think the average age of exposure to porn is like 11.
Right.
So, and most of my clients and probably most of my listeners, their husbands, even though they're struggling with this now, it's something they were introduced to, I mean, as early as like 9. So it's definitely, this is very par for the course.
And I was probably later than most. Yeah. To your point, it's probably a lot younger. And what's crazy is I've talked to so many friends that also had this experience is, they were so young. And I grew up in a very like God-oriented family. My family, always tried to teach me, how to be a good person and to follow Jesus Christ. And I would say that's who I was. Like, I wasn't a perfect kid, but I was the oldest of 5. I feel like I always excelled in most things that I did. And having this setback come into my life, or it felt like a massive setback, because it started to, I guess, undermine my self-confidence about, was I really still on this path of trying to become who God wanted me to be. It started to really eat at me, especially because I felt like it should have been something that I could, repent of and move on from really easily. And all of a sudden it wasn't, right. Like I kept stumbling. And for the first time I was realizing like, oh, maybe I like really need the savior. I don't know. I had really had a moment in my life where I realized that maybe Jesus applied so heavily as it started to then. But I
Mm-hmm.
was still really doing this in isolation in terms of like trying to overcome it. I hadn't told my parents, I hadn't talked to any of my church leaders. And I'm happy to continue the story unless you want to jump in. But
No, keep going, keep going.
okay, yeah. So eventually I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna reach out to my bishop at my church and talk to him about this, and talk to my mom as well. And opening up to them helped. But I know that like for my mom, she felt a huge burden now, like feeling like she had kind of failed as a mother.
Right. We do
And
that as
yeah,
moms. We do. We
totally.
take that on.
And I've talked to her a lot about that since then. And I know that like her and I have had, I guess, a process of helping her, both me for myself and her, realizing like that this doesn't define me.
Yes.
And nor does it define her success as a mother.
Mhm.
There's so much more to me than just this one struggle. So anyways, fast forward, I continued through high school, and I ended up joining a group program that was able to help me get connected with some other guys, as well as just start to understand some basic recovery principles. And that was super helpful. And I think through that experience, I made a ton of progress and learned a lot of things. Fast forward, I ended up serving a mission for the LDS Church, coming back and starting college. So now I was 21 at the time, and these behaviors started coming back. So I probably longest I'd made it at this point was maybe 6 months.
Uh-huh.
So as it was starting to come back, I was like, I'm going to get back involved with groups. And I guess one thing that was different though, this time, I started to realize over all the years, I'd come to meet so many friends that were struggling with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had this understanding that I'm not alone. And I'm also like, it doesn't make me like a super weird or like disgusting person, that this is a trial I'm trying to work through really proactively. But I can still feel like really confident about where I'm trying to take my life holistically, even as I'm still working through getting to a place of, I don't know, quote unquote, total success, which maybe isn't even the right way to look at it. But
I love this. Here I am stopping you again.
Yeah.
I love this because I think what you brought up is such a good point, not only for what you said about yourself when you were trying to start overcoming this and you were like, well, wait, maybe I'm not the kid I thought I was. Maybe I'm not the person that I thought I was. Right. And then your mom finds out and your mom's like, maybe I'm not the mom I thought I was. And this is something we definitely do as wives. Jade, I don't know if this happened to you too, but it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I did something wrong as the wife, right? So that was my big response when my husband told me. It was like, and it was kind of subconscious at first. I didn't really realize this was my reaction, but part of me thought, no, I must be doing something wrong, because if I were doing everything right as a wife, then this wouldn't be happening. Right. So I think this is such a powerful thing that you just said, is you realize that this isn't who you are. So many of the things that we struggle with, it's very tempting for our brain to make it who we are. And then that just adds so much guilt, and it feels so heavy that it's very difficult to move forward. And so I don't even know if you realize how powerful that mindset shift is, because it really enables you to move forward when you can realize that the things that you're struggling with don't define you. It's something I say a lot, is like, we are not the sum of our worst mistakes, right? We are more than that. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in them thinking, well, I need to know they're important. I need to work through them. It's important for me to remember how bad it is in order to move forward, but that actually prevents us from moving forward.
Totally. Yeah. And so I think when that starts to shift for me, it opened things up, because all of a sudden it wasn't the focus on like, how can I exert all of like the power I potentially have and everything in my control to try to not slip up. Like that was the goal, is how do I not slip up, rather than just like focusing on how do I actually fill my life with increased amount of purpose, with increased connection, with increased amount of God in my life. Yeah. And as it shifted from trying to add like those healthy, positive elements to my life, it crowds out the room for bad. And it wasn't like it's not a quick formula for success. But I think like by the time I was meeting Jade, these were all things that I was learning. And I think, talking to Jade, I made the decision, I guess. So we met at BYU and we started dating. And I made the decision, like, I want to talk to Jade about this, because I've been learning, that this doesn't define me, but it still feels like such a big thing that I really didn't want to get too far in the relationship before I gave her the chance to like I don't know,
back
like,
out if I wanted to.
well,
Right. Like, peace out, man. It's nice knowing you.
yeah, or into like see me for like all of my strengths and my weaknesses that I'm still
Right.
working on overcoming. And I don't know, you should jump in now. Because,
Yeah, Jade, tell me what
yeah.
that was like.
Yeah, well, it was kind of strange, I would say, because we met really quickly. Like we met all of a sudden, and then we started dating really quickly after that.
Mhm.
Maybe it was like 2 weeks. I don't know. It was fast. And I could tell I had dated a lot of people before this, and I could tell that he was different, and I clicked with him especially, and I knew he was going to be someone special. And so I feel like we got pretty serious pretty early
We were
on.
just really close very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And we could tell that I was going places. Like it wasn't just, I don't know, it wasn't slowing down. It was going to be speeding up pretty soon. But because it was still he was still so new to me. Like
Right.
I don't think I knew a lot about him, but I don't think I knew enough about him to fully offset that what he was going to tell me, I guess. I think it just shook my world a lot more. And maybe, honestly, maybe it's worse for people who have known someone for way longer. I don't know, because I wasn't in that position, but
Mhm.
I just remember like feeling like he was a stranger to me after he started telling me.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Because I didn't know what I was looking at anymore. I thought I understood him, but then there was this huge curveball, and yeah, it really shook it up. So I guess I remember just when he was telling me, he just asked me to listen. And I'm the type of person, I like to interrupt with questions.
Oh, you're like me.
More. Yeah, I'm like, tell me more. Explain that to me. And he just asked me to like listen to the whole thing. And with all of the work that he had been doing, trying to understand this for himself and understand how it fit into his image of himself, it kind of helped me see it at least a little bit more holistically.
Mhm.
And I remember feeling pretty shocked and unsure about what to do with the
Mhm.
information he was telling me, but I tried really hard to not jump to conclusions.
Mhm.
I've spent a lot of years before that. I feel like something that God taught me a lot in my experiences leading up to that is to rely on him to kind of shape my perspective of things
Mhm.
and make things what's that word? It's like resolve things that seem reconcile things that seem to be conflicting with each other.
Mhm.
Because I've seen things like that all throughout my life, like good people doing bad things or bad things happening to good people, or
Right.
a church having beliefs that seemed like they were at odds with what I thought was true. Anyways, just things like that. And I feel like this was one of those opportunities that I had to go back and kind of talk to God about this and ask him to kind of help me figure out, where does this fit into this person, Chandler? Like, how do I reconcile such a good person? I knew he was a good person. I was confident in that. But then there was this bad thing that something that just made me feel really uncomfortable. So I guess I kind of that evening after he told me, I couldn't really sleep. It was on my mind a lot. The next day, I remember having an exam and I was in the library trying to study, and it was pretty hard to focus on what I was trying to study. So I started just writing down all my thoughts. I felt like I had just had so many jumbled thoughts in my mind.
Oh my gosh. We call this a thought download. That's what I call it with my clients.
Nice.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. And it was so jumbled that I just needed to write it out to be able to process it and to understand what was going on in my head. And
pause. Ladies, everybody listen to what Jade is saying. Sometimes we have so many thoughts in our head, we can't even go through them.
Yes, exactly. So I wrote them all down, and I remember just praying. I had a prayer in my heart as I was writing them down, asking God to help me just see things the way he saw them, see things as they really are, not the way I see them from my limited experience and limited perspective. I wanted to see it the way he saw it. And as I was writing these things down, I just noticed the words I was writing was changing. Instead of talking about all of my fears and doubts and concerns and worries and confusion, I was starting to write about how I felt like this was an investment in Chandler. It was God's investment in Chandler to help him become the person he needed to be. And it wasn't, yes, it was a challenge. Yes, it makes me feel bad sometimes, or it's an ugly thing, or it's tough in a lot of ways. But that doesn't mean that this wasn't something that God is using to help Chandler become who he wanted him to be. And that investment idea, that God was allowing him to go through something hard and go through these lows so that he could come out higher with, like, you know, a higher return on investment or something like that. That really helped me, I think, understand Chandler a lot more and see his potential. And I realized that at the end of the day, yes, this was going to be hard, but I actually would be honored to be able to be part of this journey with him, to kind of watch God shape him into the person that he was meant to be.
That is beautiful. I love that. Okay. So did you, Jade, this is something that I feel like most of my clients come with, or not, maybe not most, but a lot of my clients say that they have that shock factor. Same thing for me. I had no idea. And it is something that when we become aware of, a lot of times, if it is out of the blue or something we weren't expecting, there is that kind of thing that our brain does, is like, I don't even know who this guy is anymore. Right? Like, here's this person. And for me, I'd been married to this guy for 6 years. And all of a sudden I was like, whoa, what just happened? Right. And it's something that reconciling is actually a super important thing to do in our brains, because our brain wants to see him as a stranger, because then it's easier to blame him. So one of the things that I work with my clients on a lot is actually having them reconcile that it's not a stranger, that he's the same person. Right? It's really important for us to recognize that the same person that we love, all the good things about them, there's also this part. It's very important for us to put those together in our brain, rather than keeping him as this like separate person we don't know, because it's very easy to keep him the villain. If it's like, oh, I don't even know who that is, it kind of keeps him separate. It's something that then we struggle with, that you really, in order to move forward, have to reconcile those two pieces, right? The good and the bad, or the struggle rather. Right. And I love that you brought that up. And one thing that came across my mind was, as you were sharing your story, is like, did you ever have any previous experience in your life with pornography? Like, did you know someone that had struggled with it or anything like that? I feel like that's something many of my listeners, they're like completely blindsided. They don't know anybody that struggles with porn, especially in the LDS church. It's not like something all of us talk about. I mean, we do talk about porn, but we don't talk about people who actually see it. Right. And so for me, my husband told me, and it wasn't like, oh, my cousin struggles with that, or my brother, or I knew nobody.
Yeah.
Right.
That had nothing.
Well, Jade skipped over the part in the story when I brought this up to her. I led with the question, hey, do you know someone who's ever struggled with pornography? That's actually
how you started the conversation.
That's how I started the conversation.
Right. Let's go buy some French fries.
The response was like, do I now? Very unsure. But to answer your question, I actually, I didn't know anybody. I mean, I'm sure I knew someone that struggled with pornography.
I'm sure
I just
you knew
didn't
a lot of people.
Yeah. I just didn't know that they struggled.
Right.
It's not talked about. It's obviously a very private and personal thing. And people are afraid of the judgment that comes along with it. But I'm sure I knew lots of people.
Right. 50%, right?
Right. But I think what we were actually talking about a little bit before he brought it up was my experience kind of going through, I guess, like falling into temptation. I don't really know how to classify it, but I think I don't think I ever struggled with pornography in the way that we understand it, but I definitely was going down that path. I think I was in high school, or like a sophomore and junior in high school, and I had come across some things on YouTube or online somewhere, and it was like lighter forms, I guess, if you wanted to differentiate, it's like a lighter form of content, like sexual content. And I remember being really curious, because I don't think my family really talked about that stuff very much. I was exposed to that stuff. So I was just kind of curious. I wanted to understand a little bit more. So I was going down that path, and it never got out of hand, but I started noticing really it was when I started noticing that I was slipping a little bit. I was starting to get interested. I wanted to look at it more. I wanted to like go a little deeper, more and more every day. I realized that this was probably not the right thing to do. I probably did not want to get myself in the situation where I stopped having control over what I wanted to do. And it kind of affected me in that way. So I actually was able to get out of it pretty quickly. Not that I've never had temptation since then. If I'm being honest, I do sometimes, but it's never become like a full blown issue. But I do think it's important to talk about women that struggle with pornography.
Absolutely.
As well. And it's not that uncommon for women. I'm grateful it never became a big issue for me, but I feel like me experiencing that temptation, having been tempted before, even just a little bit, and realizing that I could have gone down that path also allowed me to not put myself on a pedestal and say, well, I'm so much better than this.
For sure.
He's way beneath me. Or
yes. I think that I love that you brought that up. So this is kind of similar to when my husband told me. So I was first exposed to pornography. I think I was in 7th grade. And again, it wasn't like, I think it was a book that someone was passing around to the entire class. And they were like, hey, read this. And I was like, okay. And I read it. And that was like my first introduction to it. And then, even the internet, it did exist back then. And so I remember getting exposed to it. And I had that reaction, which is very normal. That's actually what our bodies are designed to do. Right.
Crazy,
and
right?
What'd you say?
Crazy, right?
I know. Right. I know. But there's so I understood it. So when my husband came and he told me, my thought really was, I get it. Like I understood how that could happen. It made sense to me logically. Got it. Right. And I do think it's very important to understand, especially for women and like for all my ladies listening, if you have kids, I know we worry as parents a lot for our boys, but not to be a doomsdayer, but like we have to worry about our girls too, right? Like just to be aware that it's actually increasing more for girls, right? So it used to be this huge difference between boys and girls, but now the girls are catching up to the boys, especially with social media, right? And anyway, I'm not going to get off that rabbit hole, but I love that you brought that up because I think that's one of the things that I teach my ladies so much in coaching is trying to help them learn how to shift their mindset and to come at it rather than from this like moral high ground to be more open and more understanding in a way of, of being even just being curious, even if they are like, look, I don't get it, but maybe I could, right? Like maybe if I just learned a little bit more about what you're saying to me than I could, and really being able to see him with compassion is very important rather than, again, seeing him as this like evil human out to ruin your life.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the fact that Jade even did that for me, I would say like has been a huge motivator and a propellant for me and my success, because the second that Jade actually came to me and was like, hey, I've been working through this, like with God, trying to help like see this a different way. And I think what I've come to realize is like, I think he's making an investment in you, like that word that she used earlier. Like I can see how he's actually like setting you up to grow in an immense way that you probably don't even realize. Like, I'd already gone through these moments where I had perspective shifts about myself, but this was another big one and a step forward where I was like, this isn't just like, I can't wait to like get over this trial. Of course, like that's a natural feeling and probably still a fair thing to hope for, but changing my perspective and being like, there's probably some really positive things I can learn from that.
I love this. And I love that you have that perspective because usually, it's not the hard thing that we go through that changes us. So many people go through the same hard thing and we have completely different results. It's all how we approach it. It's all how we come to it, the way we think about it, what we do with it. Right. And I think that's so important to recognize is like, this is something I say to my clients all the time. I'm like, all right, your husband's addicted to porn. So what? And I don't mean that in a flippant way. It's like, okay, that we can't change, right? We can't change him. We can't change his actions. What are you going to do about it? Because that's what you get to choose. You get to choose. Sometimes we bring hard things on our own through our own choices. And sometimes there's hard things that are the consequences of other people's actions. And we still get to decide what comes next, right? And whether we use that for us like an investment, right? And we grow and we become something greater, is entirely up to us. So
Yeah.
I love that you use that word investment. I think it's fascinating. I love this. Okay. So how long have you all been married?
2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5.
Almost 2.5 exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. I did want to know, Chandler, if you would share with us, actually, let me ask you this first. What do you feel like, has there been something that you guys have struggled with since you got married? Like, I know you went in eyes open, Jade, but like, was there something that like kind of surprised you? Or Chandler, was there something that you didn't think would be as difficult or something that was easier than you thought it would be? If that question made sense.
Yeah. Well, the first
Yeah.
thought that comes to my mind is I think I've actually been surprised at how amazing of a marriage we've been able to have so far, and like the quality of relationship that I think we've been able to build and cultivate, even despite like this is something I'm continuing to work through. Like I wish I could be here and say that I'm like 3 years clean. I'm not right now.
Right.
I'm still I've stumbled recently. Like, and this is
It's a
something
constant thing.
that like I think I'm continuing to learn. And I would say that it's been more of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, rather than just, completely forward or completely backwards. But I think I've been amazed that this isn't just like we have a great relationship and then there's this thing off to the side. It's just like the sum of our relationship has been able to, I think, move forward in a really beautiful way and progress in a really beautiful way with this as a challenge and with other challenges. Like this isn't the only trial that me or Jade have experienced in marriage. Crazy, right?
Your life isn't perfect other than this.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. It's like, I think one of the things that we've talked about and learning through this is that this is just another trial. It's like Jade has struggled with anxiety and depression a lot. And that's also been something that we've had to navigate with our marriage in a way that's both similar and different from my struggles. But it's taught us a lot of empathy for each other and realizing like, regardless of what the actual thing is that we're dealing with, here's how we can still like be there for each other and help each other through that and have a great marriage. Not like despite that. I don't even want to use the word despite, but like with
in it.
that.
Yeah.
In it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, what would you say?
Well, I guess to just go off of that, I think because I let God kind of show me what he saw, it's not like I remember that all the time. I'm just going to say, like, sometimes I feel very betrayed and upset.
Yes.
And especially when my mental health's not doing well. That was like rock bottom for us, where it got really tough when he was slipping up and I was not doing well. Like, it was just hard for me to work through that. A lot harder than it would have been if I wasn't struggling with depression. But I would just say, I think I'm more aware now that we function not like we're trying to survive through this thing. I think it's just, we've just allowed it to be another part of our marriage, if that makes sense. Instead of trying to like root it out all the time, I think we just accepted it as like, this is part of like our weakness. Like, yes, his weakness,
but not in a necessarily complacent way either, right? It's very much there's clear expectations and clear plans around making progress,
right? And I do hold him accountable, and he has accountability partners that hold him accountable. I can't do all that by myself, but we I don't know, I guess like, I have weaknesses, he has weaknesses. We're not trying to just get rid of them. Right. We're not trying to root them out of each other.
Wait until we root out all weakness and then we'll have a great marriage.
Right. Oh, you guys, I don't think you guys know, you guys are so young and so smart and wise. I think you guys don't know how rare this is, because here's what normally happens is normally we resist, we fight it. Right. That's pretty much our natural response, fight or flight. Right. Most of the time it's kind of both. Like, in those dark moments, it's very much a flight. It's like, this is terrible. I want out. I don't want to deal with this. Make it go away. But then there's also the fight part of us that just wants to be like, man, if we could just like willpower our way past this, that would be great. Right. Yeah. But the more we try to do that, the more we add all of this tension and all of this heaviness and this pressure. And it's that pressure that usually escalates and kind of snowballs into a very negative effect within the relationship, not just personally, but then it, between the both of you, speaking from experience. So,
actually,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention something. I actually think when he tells me he slipped up again, I will definitely have a little bit of like a fight or flight response automatically. But one thing that has really worked for me, I don't know if this would work for other people, but just something that I started doing when we were dating. I obviously feel very hurt or betrayed or unsafe. Something along those lines when something like this happens. And even when I have a great perspective about it and I understand where it's coming from, like I still sometimes I don't feel great. But one thing that I feel like has helped us is if I don't walk away. And maybe some people do need to walk away. I don't really know exactly like what the best tactics are or anything, but one of the best things that's done for me and for our marriage, I feel like, is when I'm hurting, but I stay next to him and I hurt next to him.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll put my hand on his thigh or on his leg to just like let him know that I love him still.
That we're still on the same team.
We're still on the same team, but I'm hurting and it's okay. Like I try not to take it out on him. Sometimes I do, for sure.
Yeah, sure.
But I try not to. I think in this way, I'm able to kind of help him know that I love him still. Help him know that we're on the same team and I don't hate him for this. But yes, I'm hurting. And it kind of helps him feel safe to allow him to help me as well.
Right.
And help me feel better.
Right.
It's like, that's just been so powerful. That's how we've like been able to work through the pain instead of just trying to avoid the pain or move it out.
Yes. Avoiding pain is not what I recommend ever. Because it doesn't actually work. If it worked, I would be all for it, but it doesn't work. You can't actually avoid pain because it's something you feel and they live inside you. Your emotions live inside you. My ladies know this. So you can't actually avoid all your emotions as much as we would like. It sounds so similar, Jade. So I actually have a very similar response to you. When I am processing a lot of emotion, a lot of pain, a lot of times what I would want, because I think it was because I would feel emotionally disconnected from him, then what I wanted was to be physically connected to him. And so I wanted to I would seek him out. I wanted to sit next to him. I wanted him to hold my hand and just be next to me because I felt emotionally alone, very emotionally distant. And so that reminded me that it wasn't necessarily true. Like, even if I was feeling that didn't mean it was true. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up.
I think I might actually be a little bit different. I think when I feel emotionally distant, I want to be physically distant. I don't want to be close because I don't feel safe.
Sure.
But I think allowing myself or just coaxing myself almost to still preserve that physical connection or like just be together, I think helps me find healing emotionally. Sure. I think it almost is like you're breaking the touch barrier, right? Like I don't want to touch him. I don't want him to touch me because I don't feel good, but I'm breaking the touch barrier. And by doing that, I feel like that kind of just allows us to heal in that moment. Sometimes it doesn't take very long. Sometimes it's like a couple minutes and we're doing fine again. Sometimes it's a longer process, but
yeah. So I think the key principle, at least like from my perspective about this, that is so helpful is because she's not totally turning her back and like running away. It allows me the opportunity to try to mend and not to like do it in a way that is trying to force it or like because I have to or like I don't know exactly the right way to put this, but to help continue to lead to take accountability for like I messed up, but we're still on the same team. I'm acknowledging that and she's acknowledging that. And so even if she's too hurt to be able to do much more than just stay on the team and not quit, it allows me a lot more of a window to help us heal,
to move us forward.
Right. Yeah. I think this is so important. This is actually something and I work with my ladies a lot with my clients, is trying to help them. So often their mindset sees them versus the husband and the porn, right? It's like, I'm on my own team and here it's like me versus them. And, sorry, my kids are so loud today, you guys, I'm so sorry. So I love this concept of the team. This is something I work with my clients a lot on, is trying to get them to see that it's them and their husband against the porn, right? Like, you guys are on the same team. If you keep seeing yourself on opposite sides, then one of you is going to be on defense, one of you is going to be on offense, and you're always going to be in competition, right? You're always going to be battling one another. So I love this idea of this being on the same team. It's actually something I I do a lot. And I think it can be so powerful mentally, again, with the wife too, to feel like, just to remind yourself that you're not alone. And when your brain wants to convince you you're not alone, to remind yourself, no, I'm on a team, right? And if you don't have a team, you can come join my coaching program and I'll be your team. And I love, this is one of the reasons, you guys, I didn't even go into like how I know Chandler or how I met Chandler, because Chandler, I want you to give a shout out to what you're doing now, because it's like giving the men a team. So now the men can have a team, the ladies can have a team. Chandler, tell me how you created a men's team.
Yeah. Well, so I kind of realized, and I was learning this before I got married, but it certainly solidified this after I got married, that although Jade and I are a team and in ourselves by nature being married, and that's the most important team, having her be my only accountability partner wasn't the most effective thing in the world. And, not to even go into why that isn't great for her, which right. I know you talk a lot about that.
Yeah, my ladies know it's okay.
Yep. Why I was missing out on a lot of benefit of having a group of peers, guys right. that were in the same boat as me, to help create a synergy that could help me not just be more accountable, but find deeper connection to help heal and to help me not just keep doing this in isolation. Because I think the theme that I was learning was, dang, there's tons of cool people out there that also are trying to work through this, that also are trying to not let this define their lives. But, as I was attending these group programs, we spent 2 hours a week on a Zoom call or in person. And then what were we doing the other 6 days of the week? Maybe if it was like a really good, week, we were reaching out a few days in between those sessions. But for the most part, we were doing it alone. We were lone right. soldiers out in the woods. And I started to realize in talking with Jade, in our marriage, I was like, that seems like a very ineffective way to go about this process.
I would agree.
And it was like, I reflected on all the different resources out there. And I was like, okay, these group-based programs they're trying to tap into this concept of like forming a team around this can be a good concept, but they're clearly missing out on something, because I'd been a part of those. And almost everyone I talked to kind of felt like this effect of the other 6 days of the week, you're kind of just a lone soldier. And then you turn to other resources and it's like, there's these massive community forums where you're not alone, like mentally, right? But there's no tight knit support.
Right. There's no like personal connection.
Oh, yeah. Right. And so really, so I started working on Relay, an app, about a year ago with the goal of making it easier for people to find a team of peers that have the same goal and to work together effectively, to fully leverage that group of peers to get tight knit support to be successful. And I guess the word support isn't even fully accurate, because I know we just talked about earlier, support can maybe mean just venting and, we're just making everything else the problem and the enemy. Really, the word team is how we describe Relay, because it's about banding together around a common purpose and proactively figuring out how can we leverage each other to be more successful than if I just keep doing this on my own.
Right.
So what the app does is I create an account. Let's say I don't know any other guys right now that are struggling with this. Relay makes it really easy and takes the awkwardness and the stigma out of being able to even find other peers.
Right.
Match you into a team of 5 to 10 other people. But let's say you do have a couple friends or you are attending a group in person. We have a lot of people that have joined the app and say, hey, like our group chat thing that we're trying to do between sessions is not very effective. They've brought their whole group into Relay, and Relay lets them have the team they've already got in real life. But the app, what it does is it helps reduce the friction to do a couple things. Number one, to reach out when vulnerable. So the red flag feature is something that.
Yes, I love this feature. I love this feature.
Okay, yeah. So like, how often do we, like, as guys, like, not reach out when we start to realize
as humans, as human beings, we're terrible at this. We reach like our boiling point and we're like, it's cool, I'm fine. Ladies, we're terrible at this. We know this. We're like, no, I'm good. I've got this. Power through.
Yeah, it's like, I got this. And we continue to tell ourselves that we've got this. And it's it is a one-way conversation with ourselves.
Yes.
And I've reflected on the principle that, like, if God wanted us to only work through things ourselves and with him even,
then we wouldn't have.
Why didn't he put us on our own planet?
I agree. I'm with you.
Why did he give us families and churches and communities and society if we weren't supposed to, like, work together through both the good and the bad things in life, not just pornography?
Yes.
Anyways, so with Relay, we're making it easier with the red flag. Instead of having to be so self-aware and to take all the effort and craft a whole message and say, I'm struggling, with just one tap, it's allowing these guys to reach out. And we've heard cool stories about, like, this one group, for example, it was like midnight. Some guy raised a red flag. And I don't know if it was like, I'm about to slip up red flag, or if it was like, hey, I'm feeling super lonely, anxious, whatever. And instantly like 3 guys jumped on and just immediately were like talking with each other. And as I was talking to this person, he's like, yeah, like it's never been easier to like reach out, and I'm starting to figure out how I can do that more. Whereas I suck at it usually.
Right.
So trying to make that easier. And then in addition to that, trying to help facilitate deep, meaningful connection through tight knit support. And that's kind of the overview of what we're doing, and why I'm doing it is because I saw the difference it made in my own journey. So
I love this. One of the things that I love about your app too, because I've talked about this on my Instagram. Chandler was so nice. He let me go look in the app and download it and look into it. And I love it. And one of the things that I like about it, because I am a life coach and everything comes back to our emotions, I love that you're actually teaching that in your app, right? It's something that you direct your user to identify. It's like, okay, what are you feeling right now? Or when you slipped up, how did you feel? Or can you identify? And you give a whole list of emotions that you can choose from. And it's so powerful to start recognizing that that's really the core of it, right? Like that's really, my husband and I always say, like, pornography addiction is really a symptom of something that's going on internally, right? Totally. And so if you really want to overcome this, you have to be able to connect with yourself, with what's going on internally. And to be even just to have an app give you some options is so nice, so that you don't have to, so that it kind of guides you into it. I love it.
Totally. Because yeah, I'm sure some of the ladies out there listening, like, your husband is probably not the greatest at identifying emotions or communicating those. Maybe you do have a husband that's good at that. Like I would say, I don't know, from what Jade has told me, that I'm not the worst at this compared to the stereotypical guy, but even for me,
the best,
I'm not the best. And I don't think it's human nature, right? I don't think it's just a guy thing.
No, it's
noticing like I can schedule, these mood check-ins for, like, I notice I'm more vulnerable at the end of a long work day because I'm naturally wired to just want to like get tons of things done, more than I probably can. And it ends up like I can turn myself into like burnout really easily and starting to feel stressed. And that is a trigger point for me. And so I schedule these pulse checks. And although it feels like it is kind of a personal check-in, if the app notices, I'm putting in, I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling not super motivated to stay strong, it'll suggest, hey, reach out and start a conversation with your team, or throw a red flag. And for me, like, that's been helpful to remember, to have that kind of like insight through the app. That's like, hey, now that you've identified these emotions, here's like how you can take advantage. Don't stay isolated. Like, that's the wrong thing.
So. That is the wrong thing. Oh, I love this. Okay. So Chandler, if somebody wants to download your app, how do they do it?
Yeah. So they could go to our website. It's probably the easiest way to find a link to download the app there. So our website is joinrelay.app. And maybe you can put a link in the description, but from there, it's on the App Store, it's on the Play Store. So if you want to recommend it to your husband, which I would highly recommend, because Jade has now felt a lot of relief in not being the only person that's keeping me accountable. So I'm using the app for myself, even though I'm the one who made it. So they can go to the app or the website, and there's a link to download the app.
Excellent. Is your Instagram up and running yet, or not yet? Are you still locked out?
We're still locked out.
This is hilarious to me, you guys. This
Speaking
kid
of emotions,
develop his own app, but he got locked out of Instagram and he can't get back in. It's hilarious.
It's so funny. Yeah. And we were in the middle of changing the name. Our app was called Tribe before, and we were in the middle of updating the Instagram right when it locked us out. And it's
so it's still old stuff.
It's okay. We'll just go to your app. And y'all know how to follow me on Instagram at Jolene Wynn Coaching. And I have a highlight. Let me look at what it says. I think it says relay. I'm pretty sure that's what my highlight is. Yeah, it says relay app. I have a highlight in my Instagram that says relay app. So I have the link in there that you can go on that also. And I will update that. So should the day come that Chandler gets his Instagram act together and gets his account back up and running, I will put it in there so that you guys can have it. So thank you guys. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we let you go?
I guess just that, to all the women out there, I see you. I know it's hard. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned and that I would want to share, if I could, is just praying to ask God to show you what he sees. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can't figure it out on your own. And sometimes it's just helpful to have God just put the thought in your mind, or put this new perspective in your mind. And I feel like, I don't know, I just know that's gone a long ways for me. So
absolutely.
Well, I just want to add a thought. Like, Jolene, I think you're awesome, and I am such a fan of what you're doing here because I
Totally.
learned so much from Jade's perspective as we've been married, and once I like started to get to know you and saw what you're doing and how you think about things, like I just really resonate with what you're doing, and I know like a lot of the things you're saying are true because Jade and I have talked about a lot of these things as we've learned them the hard way throughout our process. But I think what I would want to leave, I think you may have mentioned this at the beginning, but it can be so easy, I think, for the woman, for the mom, the wife, whoever, to feel like you've done something wrong. For the majority of your husbands, I would guess that maybe they're in the place where they are fully trying to work through this, and it's not because they're dissatisfied with their marriage or it's because they've been stuck in this habit or their addiction for so many years. And it is a physiological thing that it's not to put the blame on why, it's still an issue, but I really just want to emphasize that probably if you're listening to this, you're not doing something wrong. You are totally enough. And if your husband is working at this, like I'm sure that he cares about you. And I know that as you guys remember to stay on the same team, that you guys will be able to see those breakthroughs. And I know that it is possible to not just let this be the one anchor that, kind of brings down a great relationship other than that, but it can be one of many trials that we learn how to navigate together as husbands and wives and continue to get stronger as we go through that and come out the other side.
I love this. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. This was so fun. I hope everybody goes and downloads the app.
Thanks, Jillian.
Thanks.
All right, ladies, if you are loving what you are learning on the podcast, I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take it to the next level and we actually start applying and learning the how of moving forward. This podcast has taught you the what, and the coaching program is where you're going to learn the how. This is where you learn how to actually start moving forward, process all of that pain that you feel, and let it go once and for all. If you are ready to finally move forward and stop living a life that revolves around your husband's pornography addiction, then I want to invite you to come join me today. Just head to my website, jolenewynn.com, and sign up today. I can't wait to see you there.